back at the goals you were looking to achieve by implementing Genio Notes, what were some of those goals that you had?
Well, one of the biggest things to me is, putting independence back in the students' hands, because and allowing students kind of their own personal choice to create their own notes. So, as if a student, when they receive peer notes, they're kind of almost, they have to, they, they don't get necessarily notes that may fit their learning style. The notes may be missing things that one person thinks it's important, but the other person doesn't. And also note takers disappear. But by having Genio Notes, technology, students can just hit a record button and they can capture their own recordings and then interact with the recording and transcript, slides, and they're basically back. And if we say they're back in the driver's seat. And also, another important goal is just for us was just to you know by reducing the amount of peer note takers, we're able to lessen the administrative load, and we can free up staff and resources to serve students in other areas
Yeah.
as well. Because and finally, third is data. Data is very important for the work we do, and Genio Notes allows us to quickly at a glance see how many students are using notes, how many students are creating transcripts, and then we can kind of focus in on what we need to, where extra need might be.
Absolutely, and it's really interesting there when you talked about freeing up that staff time. You do not know what sort of case is going to come through your door the very next day, and
Mm-hmm.
how much capacity that's going to eat up. Um, I've spoken to institutions where they've had a student come in and then there's a big a request for a certain type of emotional support animal that they then have to then cater for, facilitate, organize with faculty, and just a huge amount of admin that came basically out of nowhere.
Uh-huh.
And that can happen, right? The other thing that you mentioned there around the independence, helping the students realize that, in some instances, naturally, these students do require much more support, absolutely. But these students are, in a lot of cases, you just need to give them a means to engage in information in a way that is personal to their own preference. You mentioned learning styles there, learning preferences. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not always what's necessarily encouraged in higher education. It's, this is the one track that we have. You pick up this pen, you write it down on paper. If you can't do it yourself, someone else will do it for you. But empowering them to engage with that in a personal way is what we try to do as a vendor, is give them multiple means of representation in that sense. But I want to talk a little bit more about that process you would have had to go to build an internal business case, because it is a big switch going from
Mm-hmm.
digital recording, or peer note taking into, hey, this is a new technology unfamiliar in our institution.